Then, so let's get underway, and thank you very much for joining this session. As hopefully you're in the right place, because this is the special virtual bridge on the CDN Awards Meet the Judges, and hopefully giving you some insight into what we're looking for in terms of the CDN Awards, indeed, this year. Myself, I've been a judge since 2016. I think it's been quite a while, and I read through so many of the nominations, and I have to say it's been a privilege to do so. And at the end of each year, I think all the judges go away thinking, wow, that's how much good stuff goes on in Scottish colleges. It's fantastic. And of course, the awards play a part in quality enhancement in the, as we all want to do, moving the exceptional today onto being the norm tomorrow. And so uncovering those wonderful things is a big part of this. The downside of it, of course, is as judges, and I'm sure my three fellow judges that I'll introduce in a second with us today would agree that it's often fine margins, indeed, that separate the entries. And it can be very difficult, and especially because the comparability of nominations isn't often easy, and trying to work out whether a small positive impact on 100 trumps a very large transformational impact for 3 people. Those sort of judgments come down to a qualitative measurement rather than a quantitative one. So, but it's been a fantastic chance for the sector to show off. So credit to CDN and credit to the judges that have gone through these, and more importantly, credit to you for getting in the nominations, showcasing your college's good stuff. Now, we're going to go through the 3 judges in turn, and I'll introduce them one by one, and we'll have a chance to ask questions afterwards. But each is going to give their view on any general aspects and anything about particular categories they would like to bring up. And with that, I'll hand over to John first. John, over to you.
Well, good afternoon, colleagues. I've had the pleasure of being a judge now. I started being a judge before the turn of the century, which is a phrase I never thought I'd be using. So off and on, I've done a number of categories over time. And there's a few things I think I can highlight that might help you focus the information that you send to judges and give you a bit more confidence about its presentation. The first is to consider when you're writing. Historically in colleges, we write reports that build a story and are detailed, but in a document that comes to judges, it's really helpful if each section, I'm going to describe it as being done newspaper style. And what I mean by that is make sure the first couple of sentences highlight exactly what you're doing. The reason I say newspaper style, I did some newspaper writing for a while, and what they do is they ask you to overwrite and then they cut the paragraphs off at the bottom. And it's the same concept here, I think. Get the main items in early on and then explain them as you go on. This gives the judges a better grasp as you start the reading about what the project's about, what it's out to do, and the way that it's likely to have an impact. So kind of headline with the first couple of sentences in each section exactly what the big story is here about this project. The second thing, and probably the biggest tip I can give, is to make sure that you don't bring forward a proposal until it's time to have some measurable impact. Probably over the years, about 1/3 of the ones that we've set aside or put back has been around the fact that an innovative project is happening, but at this point, there's not enough evidence about the impact on the people that it's aimed for. Staff who are engaged in something creative, something new, something constructive, really want to get recognition and get it out there early. But in reality, for an award, you have to know that that project is having an impact on the learners that it's planned, and it's having the type of impact you wanted. So if you're clear that it's settled in, I'm going to say settled in for a year or whatever is a reasonable timescale for you to say, we know this works and we know it works well, and here's the evidence. I think the third thing is to reflect on the scalability of whether it can be copied. If you've got an idea that others can learn from, it's useful if you highlight to the judges the way that that might be copied, it might be built into other activities, it might be scalable for you to extend or others to use. Because award is not just about recognition of good work. It is that point that Jason made about we want to make an impact on practice across the sector. And if you feel that your idea, your project is strong enough that it will help others, highlight that point and highlight as far as you can how you think it can help others. The fourth area I want to talk about is just the clarity of what you're putting forward. You have to be very clear in your proposal what problem or issue or opportunity that you want to exploit. You know, so very clearly, you know, this is about better working relationship with schools or getting more advanced standing at HN. You know, whatever the problem is, whatever the issue is, if you make that very clear. Secondly, who it impacts, what's your client group for this? And thirdly, how it's measured. So if what you're trying to do is improve the number of students who get advanced standing at university, you really want to put in, you know, the number who get it now, the fact that you think it could be better, and the number post-intervention, so that there's a clarity about this was the problem, this is how we judged it before, this is how we judge it now. So there's a clear line of impact against the problem that you aimed to address. The next area is just to highlight the innovative or new element. In an award, you want to know what people have done differently, what they've done creatively, and, you know, highlight very clearly, this is a new way, we have never seen this before, you know, that whatever the element is that gives it a unique selling point. So if you emphasize that unique selling point, it makes it clearer to judge the value added that you're bringing. And the last thing I would say is judges like to see, I would like to see, a reflection on learning. Sometimes really good projects still have bad elements, you know, so it's useful to say we tried X, Y, and Z, X and Y worked, Z didn't. Because it is about learning, sharing ideas, as well as recognizing good work. And I think if you can do that within the information that you send forward, you make it easier for a judge to be confident about the judgments, to understand exactly what impact that you had, and to be sure that there's not only recognition of good work, but that there's the likelihood that your good work will help others do better. Thank you, Jason.
And thank you very much, John. Now you've stolen all the good points, which makes it a little bit different, but difficult. But I'm sure Nugget's got a few things that she can add. And I invite you up.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, John. Yes, you've covered all the main points. So a little bit about me. I did my first CDN Awards as a judge last year, and it was very much about pulling upon my skill set as an educator, facilitator, community activist, and someone who started my journey into education as a college lecturer in business admin at Annie's Land College. Many years ago. It's now known as Glasgow Clyde College. It just tells you how long I've been in education. It has been a privilege to read of the incredible work our colleagues in our colleges are doing under very extreme circumstances, where they've been pulling upon each other to get through the pandemic and support staff and students. And this is an opportunity for me to say thank you for everything that you've done. The 3 awards that I focused on with 2 and 3 other judges was firstly the College Community Learning Award, the Health and Wellbeing Award, and the Inclusive College Award categories. It wasn't an easy task, and there was that crossover between all three awards. And really, pulling upon what John said, what I looked for was the story. What story was the college or the project trying to tell? Was it about a specific role within a department, or was it a wider institutional story? Was it about the internal community or the external community? And its role, very much the role it added to the community within which it sat. Did it identify issues? How were those issues prioritized? What resources were put into place to tackle and address those issues? And how would they measure that impact further down that line? So very much, again, touching very briefly on what John has already said, the College Community Learning Award, it recognised and celebrated the innovative and outstanding work of colleges and their community partners in the delivery of the community-based learning opportunities. You can find the information on this. I'll put the link into the chat bar, which covers all the areas that we're looking for, and it's very much about, in this one, was the initiative that was presented to us, was it innovative? Who was involved? Was it student, community, or stakeholder led? What was the actual aim? Did it support the wider participation or lifelong learning in the community with that sustained commitment, particularly to learners who face barriers to accessing existing college provision? And one of the entries that stood out for me from last year was from Glasgow Clyde College. And this is very much about the reusing and remastering of technology to digitally include individuals and community. So it was very much about able to link systems and services with people in the community. Another strong entry was from Edinburgh College and the community-based ESOL initiatives, which highlighted the importance of providing programs that were tailored for the individuals and recognize the additional needs of its students. So there are many projects that I could pull upon, but it's really important to look at the brief and focus on all the very useful and wise comments that John has already shared with us at the beginning. So I'm going to hand back over to you, Jason, to carry on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. And Graham's got the most difficult job because coming third, but I think you're going to concentrate on your categories. Is that correct, Graham?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, sometimes going third can make it easier because you can say everything everybody said before you. But I was just wanting to talk specifically about employer connections. In terms of owning up to how long you've been involved, I've been 3 years, I believe I've been a judge. This would be my 4th year. For those of you who don't know me, I work for Skills Development Scotland in the foundation and graduate apprenticeship space, and that's part of why I was brought on to look specifically around about the employer connections part of the work. And as other judges have said, there's great nominations coming in every year, and we're seeing some really strong work out there in the field. I'd fed back that actually I've seen lots of really good things going on in the employer space out there in the college sector that I've never seen forward in nominations. So I wondered whether or not there was something in how we pitch the employer connections category that drives the kind of nominations we get. So I'd fed back into that space. And for me, what it is we get lots and lots of really good bespoke one-off pieces of work. But what we're really looking for in there is something that's got that reach, something that's going to have impact across multiple stakeholders, in terms of learners, employers, in terms of the teaching staff, and something that may even be transferable beyond just that department, rather than just that faculty itself. One of the things I'd probably highlight in particular would be worth looking at is that systematic approach around about employer connections, where is it you can show that there's a short-term benefit, and you can point towards where you expect the medium or the longer term benefits to be. Where is it we can see that the impact in that isn't just about a one-off piece of work, but it's something that will have that legacy, and the potential for that legacy to influence beyond just individuals involved in that piece of work. One of the things I would say is it's particularly around about the employer connections category, and I'm sure this applies to others, is there's no issue for us in terms of the scale of this. In terms of if you think about if you're in a bigger college, you're more likely to have a bigger number of employers access or bigger number of learners impacted in a smaller college. It's not so much about the scale in that sense. It's about the systematic impact of it for that college and for those learners in that community. Is what we're looking at in terms of it. And I'll hand back to Jason.
Thank you very much, Graham. And that just leaves me a few things to add, but I'll go with all of the above as well. I think one thing to reiterate is it's annual awards, and so making clear to the judging panel why this year. And just beforehand, talking to the other judges about the fact that, well, it can be quite difficult. There's an awful lot of merit in a 25-year project that's been doing wonderful things over 25 years. When do you apply for an award? And obviously that's not precluded, but what we want to know is why this year, and why are we going to give an award this year rather than next year or last year? And so look out for those times where impact is being measured, or if there's a demonstrable step up in the project or development in some way. The innovation, uniqueness, exceptionality bit is really quite clear, and I feel sometimes that well, it should be true, and it is true, that we have a great pride in what is achieved by Scottish colleges. It's not just the good stuff; it has to be the stuff for an award which steps up beyond all the good stuff that's being done to the exceptional. And again, being very clear as to why that it stands out beyond business as usual. So if I give an example for that, a few years ago, maybe it must have been about 2018, maybe 19, I remember one nomination where a particular college was claiming to be the first to have consulted with its local industry. So make sure that if there's an outlandish claim, it's qualified in some way, so it's believable, because I don't think that was the case with regards to that particular one. So yeah, make sure that it's presented in a credible way, I suppose. One little bugbear of mine is percentages versus absolute figures. I've had 100% increase in my coffees this morning. I had 2. That's it doesn't really allow us as judges to ascertain what sort of scale we're talking about. Now, scale isn't everything. We're not just looking for the biggest projects. There can be very small projects with a high degree of transformation involved and originality, but still, just giving us a load of percentages doesn't give us the sight of what sort of size of project that we're talking about. And finally, I will say, but I think we've all seen entries that have been nominated for more than one category, and that is absolutely fine. You may have a partnership in digital learning, in which case there's no good reason why you shouldn't apply for the Digital Learning Award and the Partnership Award, for example. But make sure that the entries are tailored to such. The criteria are listed individually for each award. A cut and paste of the whole thing across to another category is not likely to meet the criteria in the other categories. So a little bit of attention to that. I will say, so we sponsor the Digital Learning Award, and obviously that's been quite a big one over the past couple of years for some reason. Colleges have risen up to a very difficult challenge indeed. But the criteria are there, and I will say the creative approaches is certainly part of it, and the creativity is around the impact, what is being delivered, not about the technology itself. Technology is nice, but it's what technology does that matters. So again, a bit of a focus on what is creative, and also I'll skip to the last criterion there, uniqueness about it as well. What is being done across the sector isn't going to get an award from a particular college unless it's being done in a way that stands out as being markedly better or different. As has been mentioned before, a big part of it is the scope for the ideas to be adapted and transferred. We love those instances where an idea starts off small, is proven, and then transforms the sector in some way. So we're looking at how those steps can happen. That can be, it may have happened in some instances and already be ramping up its impact and transferred. And others, it can be a plan for doing so for the future. I think across quite a few of the categories, we're talking about sustainability and longevity. It's all very well to get $500,000 grant if you're lucky to get such a thing and run a project, but then what happens at the end of it? What's the difference, the ongoing difference is going to be made, or indeed how is the project going to continue? And collaboration. I came across our DigiFest annual conference, the wonderful term about operating in cylinders of excellence, which is the new term for silos. Of course, we do what we do best in collaboration often. And so if there's elements about collaboration and how it's drawn upon the expertise and experience from across different places, then that's certainly a positive. It's not a necessary. Some things are done brilliantly individually, but collaboration is important. And particularly where it's collaboration with others, making clear what the role of the college or the applicant is within that collaboration. Well, leadership is fine and organisation is fine, and indeed that can stand out as a wonderful element of it. But for the Digital Learning Award, those are the sort of things that we're looking for. Well, we now have just over 5 minutes for any questions that you may have. So I'll open the floor. Feel free to just come off mute and speak, or if you're so minded, reactions and raise your hand. Or have we answered all the questions?
Can I ask a question?
Amy, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering about what the judges are looking for in terms of how specific we're being. So are you looking for us to outline specific projects and initiatives underneath a strategy? Or would you be interested in hearing about sort of innovative approaches to delivering wider college strategies?
Would any of my fellow judges like to come back on that?
Sure. As a general point, Amy, I would say it is about the specifics. The problem with writing things that are broadly about strategy is you'll find it harder to identify the issue and the impact. So I would say generally try and focus on projects. What you may find under a strategy is you've got 2 or 3 projects that contribute to it. And in that case, I would go for 2 or 3 entries. But I think that the more general you make your entry, the harder it is to judge its impact for you and for us, you know, as part of a greater bit of work. So I would focus on the kind of impact, the operational end of how things happen, rather than the high end, if that's some kind of answer that's helpful.
And that's not to say that we haven't seen awards given in the past, and very meritorious when when a strategy and a change in approach does meet the criteria of an award as well. But absolutely, I think the key there is the focus on the issue being resolved, or the problem being solved, or the opportunity being taken, and the impact, and recognising the difficulty, as you've mentioned there, John, in doing so.
Just to add to that, agree with what John said in particular around about this. It's really good to have that example and the specifics. It's quite helpful as you reference with alignment to strategy. You know, it's really good to know what you're doing does align in to national strategies going to support, because that adds to sustainability of it and tells about the potential of the long-term impact. So referencing it is helpful, but it's not just the strategy, it's the specifics of it.
Excellent point. Thank you. Any further questions? Well, I think if we're coming to the end of that, then, well, I think I can give you a couple of minutes back. I think we'll say I think we're all pretty excited to be involved again, and looking at uncovering the wonderful things that go on within colleges. I will say that I'm part also of the Herald Higher Education Awards judging, and it was great to see that the colleges, quite rightly, putting in their nominations for the Higher Education Awards, and again, wonderful examples of enhancement of teaching and learning coming out through that as well. I think there's always the question, and CDN, I know I've been working on this for years, about how we get greater attention for the achievements of the college sector, in particular over the past 2 years as well. They've been fantastic. But as I say, you're playing your part in that by the investment of time and effort, gathering together these nominations and getting them in and getting the word out there, showcasing your institution and the sector at large. As ever, if you've got any questions, then you know where the site is for putting in your nominations, and the details there to contact CDN about anything there. You might have some colleagues that you might want to invite to, or you might want to come back yourself to the second session, Virtual Bridge, that we're holding on this, though it will be about the same content. It's either or, if you like.